My name is Thomas Reed. I was a servant in the Blanchard household of Pimlico, London, in the year 1886. I've carried this story for nearly 40 years. Some nights I wake to the sound of glasses clinking and laughter echoing through empty halls, the same laughter I heard that night before everything changed. I was there when Dr. Henry Tunstall died, and to this day I don't know if what I saw was murder or something far worse. It was a Thursday evening, November 4th. The city outside was pale with fog. Inside, the Blanchard house glowed with warmth, gaslight shimmering against velvet curtains. Mrs. Clara Blanchard, a woman of striking calm and precision, had ordered everything prepared to perfection. A supper for 4. Her husband, her sister, and their family doctor. Dr. Henry Tunstall had been their physician for years. Tall, polite, and oddly reserved. There was always something unreadable in his eyes, something tired perhaps. The mistress often said, "Henry needs company, Thomas. He works too hard. He forgets to live." I nodded, though even then I sensed her concern had another shade to it. Not kindness, but attachment. That evening, as I arranged the table, she stood by the window, her gloved hand resting against the glass. "He's late," she said softly. "Dr. Tunstall, ma'am?" "Yes." Her tone was clipped. "He promised 7, precisely." When he arrived, the clock had just struck the half-hour. His coat was damp, his gloves speckled with rain. "Forgive me," he said. "I was detained at St. George's. A patient." Mrs. Blanchard smiled, though I saw her jaw tighten. "Of course, doctor. We're honored you came despite your duties." Dinner was served, roasted duck, potatoes, and a fine Bordeaux. Mr. Blanchard, a quiet man with little warmth, spoke mostly of trade and numbers. His wife listened, but her eyes kept finding Dr. Tunstall. It wasn't passion I saw. It was something more dangerous, like desperation hidden beneath civility. Around the second course, she excused herself to fetch a special cordial she had saved for the occasion. I followed her to the pantry. She took a small crystal decanter from the shelf, dustless, untouched for months. She held it as if it were sacred. "Thomas," she said without looking up, "you'll pour this only for Dr. Tunstall, not for the others." "Yes, ma'am," I replied, though my stomach turned. When she noticed my hesitation, she smiled faintly. "Don't worry, it's his favorite. He'll recognize it." Back at the table, she handed me the decanter. I poured. The doctor raised his glass. "To health," he said. They drank. Only he smiled afterward, unaware that every eye in the room was on him. An hour later, the supper was over. The guests retired to the parlor. Mr. Blanchard soon excused himself. Something about papers to review. His wife and the doctor sat by the fire, their voices low, their words lost beneath the ticking of the clock. I cleared dishes but lingered near the door. I don't know why. Maybe instinct. Maybe fear. "I can't continue this," I heard Dr. Tunstall whisper. "Henry." Her voice trembled. "You can't mean that." "It's wrong, Clara. I should never have—" She cut him off sharply. "Don't pretend you care for decency now. You've already chosen your side." The rest was silence. Then the sound of glass shattering. I turned. The doctor's tumbler lay in pieces at his feet. He pressed a hand to his mouth. His skin had gone pale. "Henry," she whispered. He rose, stumbled once, then collapsed. The chair tipped. His body struck the hearthrug with a dull thud. I ran forward. His breath came in short gasps. His eyes darted wildly, unfocused. "Fetch the doctor," Mrs. Blanchard cried. Then, realizing the irony, she froze. "No. Fetch help. Quickly." I ran into the street, shouting for assistance. By the time the neighbors arrived, he was dead. That night, the police came. I remember the flicker of their lanterns, the smell of soot, the low murmurs in the hall. They took the decanter, the glass, and questioned everyone. Mrs. Blanchard sat silently in the parlor, her face calm, her eyes empty. Mr. Blanchard looked at her with something close to hatred. "You've done this," he said quietly when he thought no one was near. She didn't respond. The inquest began 2 days later. They said Dr. Tunstall died of chloroform poisoning, but how it entered his body, no one could tell. There were no burns in his throat, no trace in his lungs. Only the stomach showed residue, as if he had swallowed it directly, though no container in the house carried such a substance. At the coroner's hearing, Mrs. Blanchard testified with perfect composure. She said the cordial was a French liqueur, unopened since her wedding day. She swore she had no knowledge of anything harmful. When asked about her relationship with the deceased, she paused only once. "Dr. Tunstall was a friend," she said, "and my husband's physician. Nothing more." I was called next. My hands shook as I spoke. "Did you pour the drink yourself?" the coroner asked. "Yes, sir." "And who gave you the instruction?" "The mistress." "Did she specify who was to receive it?" "Yes, sir, only Dr. Tunstall." The room went silent. Mrs. Blanchard turned her gaze on me, calm, unwavering. In that look was a warning, or perhaps pity. I couldn't tell. By the end of the week, she was arrested. The newspapers called it the Pimlico poisoning mystery. Crowds gathered outside the Old Bailey, whispering of jealousy, of affairs, of revenge. But I couldn't forget the look on her face when the verdict was read. Not fear, not anger, relief, as if a long performance had ended, and she was finally allowed to rest. That night, I returned to the house to collect my things. It was dark, the gas lamps extinguished, the rooms hollow. In the parlor, I found the broken glass still lying by the hearth. I reached for it but stopped. A faint scent still lingered in the air. Sweet, sharp, almost floral. I felt dizzy. As I turned to leave, I thought I heard a sound. The faint clink of crystal against wood, as if someone were raising a glass. "To health," a whisper said behind me. I didn't look back. I left the house and never returned. But sometimes, when I pass through Pimlico, I see that window still lit. One single glow where the supper once was. And I swear, in the flicker of that light, a woman's silhouette stands, glass in hand, waiting for a guest who will never come. I, Thomas Reed, never meant to speak of the trial again, but silence is a cruel companion. Even after all these years, London hasn't forgotten Mrs. Clara Blanchard, the woman who may or may not have killed her family doctor in her own dining room. I still remember the morning of the trial. The sky was gray and heavy with rain, as if the city itself wanted to wash its hands of what was coming. The courthouse steps were crowded. Vendors sold papers with headlines that screamed, "The Pimlico Murderess." Women whispered behind veils. Men pretended not to stare. And there she was, Clara Blanchard, stepping out of the carriage with her black veil drawn, escorted by 2 officers. She didn't look like a murderer. She looked like a widow who had already buried half her soul. When the proceedings began, the courtroom was so still that even the sound of a pen scratching could make you flinch. Mr. Blanchard sat in the front row, face drawn and pale. He hadn't spoken to his wife since the night of the supper. He refused to meet her eyes. The prosecution began coldly. "Ladies and gentlemen," the barrister said, "we present a woman scorned, whose pride turned to vengeance. A man died in her home, by poison only she could have prepared." They brought out the evidence, the decanter, the glass, the report confirming traces of chloroform in the victim's stomach. But the defense, led by a quiet man named Mr. Calvert, did something unexpected. He didn't deny the facts. He questioned reality itself. He asked, if Mrs. Blanchard administered poison, how did it reach the stomach without damaging the throat or lungs? If Dr. Tunstall swallowed it willingly, why? And if it was suicide, where is the bottle? No one could answer, not even the police. When my turn came to testify, I tried to stay steady. My voice echoed in the wooden chamber. "I served the cordial as instructed," I said. Dr. Tunstall drank it. Within the hour, he was gone. And did you see Mrs. Blanchard add anything to his glass? No, sir. Did you leave the pantry unattended? Yes, for a moment. That was all the defense needed. Mr. Calvert looked at the jury and said, "Sometimes, gentlemen, evil doesn't wear a face. It hides in accidents, in chemistry, in fate. My client lost a friend, not a victim." For 3 days the trial went on. Reporters filled every seat. Some swore she smiled when the verdict was read. Others said she fainted. But I was there, and I know what I saw. The foreman stood. We find the defendant not guilty. The room erupted, half in shock, half in outrage. Mrs. Blanchard didn't move. She stood like a statue as the judge dismissed her. When she finally turned toward me, her eyes caught mine. There was no triumph there, only exhaustion. She mouthed one word before she was led away. Free. But she wasn't. A month later, her husband left London for good. They said he sailed for South America, leaving no address. The house on Warwick Street was sold to a distant cousin. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. In December of that same year, I was hired by a merchant family living 2 streets away from the Blanchards' former home. One evening, returning late, I passed the old house. A dim light burned in the upper window, the same window that had glowed on the night of the supper. I stopped. Everyone knew the place was empty. I crossed the road for a better view. There she was. Clara Blanchard standing by the window in her dark dress, veil lifted, staring into the street. Her face was pale as milk. In her hand, a small glass caught the faint gaslight. I froze. She raised it slowly, as if in a toast. Then the light went out. When I told the constable the next morning, he laughed. "The place is locked, man. The owner's abroad. You saw your reflection in the fog." But the reflection didn't explain the footprints I later found in the frost. Small, delicate ones leading from the side gate to the steps. No one believed me, but I began to hear others speak of it too. A postman swore he heard a woman crying behind the shutters. A child claimed she saw a figure pacing the upstairs hall. One evening, I went back. I don't know what I expected. Maybe to end the nightmares, maybe to face the truth. The gate creaked as I pushed it open. The garden was wild, the ivy choking the windows. I slipped inside through the servant's door, the same door I had used countless times before. The air was cold, thick with dust. I lit my lantern. The house was exactly as we had left it. The silverware on the sideboard, the chair by the hearth, even the faint smell of the cordial in the air. I stepped into the dining room. The broken glass was gone, but on the table sat a decanter, half full, clear as ice. My hand trembled. I leaned closer. The stopper was new, sealed tight, and next to it, on a folded napkin, was a single note written in delicate cursive, "Drink, and you will understand." I ran. That night, I couldn't sleep. My heart pounded until dawn. The next morning, I returned with the local constable. The table was empty. No decanter, no note. Just dust and sunlight. 2 weeks later, I heard the news. A woman matching Clara's description had been found dead by the Thames near Chelsea Bridge. The coroner called it an act of despair. No signs of violence, no poison in her body, only a faint scent of chloroform on her clothes. They buried her quietly. No husband, no mourners, no priest's words. Just a name on a small stone. Clara Blanchard, 1859-1886. But it didn't end there. In the spring that followed, new tenants moved into the house on Warwick Street. They didn't last a month. The lady of the house claimed she saw a woman standing by the fireplace holding a glass, whispering, "To health." They left the next morning. The house has remained empty ever since. And me? I've carried this story through every year that followed. People call it coincidence, chemical misfortune, or a love affair gone wrong. But sometimes late at night when I walk past Pimlico and the fog settles low, I hear that soft clink of crystal. Once I even saw her again, just for a second, in a passing cab window, her reflection beside mine, smiling faintly as if she still had something left to finish. I don't look anymore. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. They're meant to be remembered. And in Pimlico, the glass is still raised. To health.